Hey guys, I'm Fancy.
And I'm Colleen.
And this is Murder by Design. Well, hey, friends. Oh, my goodness. Welcome back. We know it's been a couple of weeks since we last talked about our crime of the month, but we've been regrouping and reorganizing to make things easier for us and you. And as you know, we are coming to the close of our season 2 over on our podcast, The Good Wives Guide to True Crime. And we apologize for the delay in the finale series on Scott Peterson. There was a corruption in the files, then we had to take them down. However, we've worked extra hard to fix the problem and have been able to re-release episode 1. So that's out for you right now. Sadly, we're going to have to re-record episode 2, which was Colleen's plight for Scott's innocence. So as soon as we get that done, we'll have everything ready to go, including our bonus content. We should have it all out by the end of the month. And keep a lookout on our socials for the announcement of the re-release. Also, at the end of October, we'll be launching 2 new podcasts. Our first one is all about missing people and unsolved murder cases. And we'll be working with Todd Matthews, the former director of NamUs, and David Middleman of Othram Industries, which works with minute DNA to help solve cold cases where other people cannot do so, even cold cases as old as 100 years. So the second podcast is going to be an entertainment-based talk show. And we're super excited about both of these. And we might even have a few more things to pull out of the bag. So make sure you're following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to get all the inside details. But tonight is our return to our crime of the month. And Colleen and I decided that we really, really like interacting with you guys so much. When we are live, that we're going to do both Monday and Friday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern from now on. So we have our daytime broadcasts, but these lives are always so much more fun when we get to talk with you guys. So our crime of the month this month is all about the Chicago mob. And we had the absolute pleasure of sitting down and chatting with former FBI agent Elaine Smith. In our introduction, we gave you a brief history about Elaine and her work with Japanese mobster Ken Ito. And so tonight we're going to go through a bit of the beginnings of the Chicago mob.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight. So like we said, this is about the Chicago mob. And often in America, our mafia has often been romanticized. We've got all these countless mafia-centered movies, the Godfather trilogy, Mobsters, The Bronx Tale, Danny Brasco, Public Enemies, and even getting into some of Ocean's movies. It always seems so fun and flashy and dangerous, but cool. But however, in reality, the mafia is anything but romantic. It's not all fun and games.
Right.
The beginnings of the mob started when immigrants began being enticed here by the booming American industries.
Yeah. And I mean, so, this kind of started off back in like the mid to late. That's what I'm trying to say. God, I feel so stupid what I'm saying, but like mid to late 19th century. So, during the heyday of, the mobsters and, so the rise of the mafia criminals. So now when you think of mafia, I'm sure your brain kind of brings up images of New York. And I'm sure you think of things like the 5 boroughs or the 5 families, and names like Lucky Luciano and Al Capone fill your thoughts. But the mafia in Chicago was even more powerful, dangerous, and organized than all of the New York's 5 families combined. And Capone had a lot to do with that. So,
right. And when we've tried to explain this to at least to each other, obviously, the coasts have a lot of things coming into it from other countries. But in the United States, Chicago is right dead in the center. So they get to have their hand in the rest of the country.
Right.
And so these mobs took control of the drug, gambling, and prostitution rings and became substantially wealthy from all that business. And they relied heavily on extortion using a technique termed the black hand. And that black hand essentially meant that they threatened you with violence if you didn't fall in line. So basically, you were paying the mob to protect you from the mob. Fall in line or get cut.
Right, right. And the Chicago outfit, which had like a bazillion names. So they were also known as the Chicago Mafia, Chicago Mob, Chicago Crime Family, the Empire, the Chicago Organization, or just shortened to the Outfit, is to date one of the most dangerous and powerful mafia families in America and one of the most powerful and dangerous criminal organizations in the entire world. So the Chicago Outfit began with a man named, and I'm going to hope I say this is like Giacomo, Big Jim Colosimo. I think that's how that
it's
goes.
Giacomo. Yeah.
Giacomo. I think I said it right. I don't know. I I'm Italian, but I don't get the names because I didn't grow up in an Italian family because I was adopted. So I try my best. But Big Jim used thousands of brothels to organize their money and power, but it didn't become the huge powerhouse that we all know, that's kind of been shown in like all the different movies we were talking about until the 18th Amendment passed in 1920s outlawing alcohol sales. So
yeah,
it went through the roof. Yeah, prohibition and that crazy. And the funny thing is like now if you go to Chicago, like I said earlier, the romanticism of these things, they have like tours, all the speakeasies that used to be there are no longer speakeasies, but you can tour all the speakeasies and drink in them. And I mean, it's kind of crazy that they've kind of capitalized on this even more than just the millions of dollars and billions of dollars that these people made in the 20s through. So
right. It's now like a historical thing, kind of like, spots of the Underground Railroad, it's a part of history. And obviously we in America love to drink. And so prohibition raised up demand of everything that the mafia had to offer.
Well, like we had actual like bootleggers down here. Now the bootleggers that we're going to talk about in like Chicago, not the same kind of thing. The bootleggers here were like, we have a still and we make freaking, moonshine, and they were moonshine runners, and I watched a really good movie with Shia LaBeouf, which I don't like a lot of his stuff, but he's a great actor. I just don't care for him personally, but he did something, I think it was called like Lawless or whatever. And they were two brothers that were moonshine runners, and it was super, super good, but totally different. So in true mafia fashion, Big Jim's nephew, Giovanni Papa Johnny Torrio, and that's a name I've heard before, the Torrio, disagreed over how the criminal activities should be handled. And eventually Papa Johnny killed his uncle, Giacomo, to give rise to his own greed and power. And this sparked what was known as the Beer Wars, which was a war waged between the Italian family that controlled the south side of Chicago and the Irish mafia family, which controlled the north side. And if you've ever seen a movie that's really good about that kind of conflict, The Departed is amazing. And it's one of my favorite all-time movies, especially mobster movies, which is kind of the Italians versus these Irish mobs and stuff. So it's a really great movie. But
wasn't the I didn't watch it, but it was like The Irishman or something.
Yeah. Well, The Irishman. That's got like mixed reviews. Like I personally liked it. I felt like it was a little gratuitous in its length. But I thought it was okay. But if you talk to Jack O'Halloran, who we did earlier in the season, he basically said that was complete hogwash and trash.
Yeah.
Like, it's totally not accurate. But then again, I mean, you got to think about the source here. I mean, he's trying to sell his book about the mafia, so who knows? I mean,
True.
I'm not saying he didn't say, and he's not telling the truth either. But maybe it's a little bit of everyone's truth that might be the real truth. I don't know.
Right.
But so these beer wars started, and then Torrio officially hung up his fedora when an attempt on his life was made, and he turned over control to a name we all know, a man that had become part of the family in 1919 and quickly rose through the ranks, and that was Mr. Alphonse Capone. So Al Capone.
Well, so something that's super interesting, he kills his uncle, very North Korea dictator, like just kill your family members to be the one in power.
Right.
That's exactly what Kim Jong-un did.
Well, I mean, that's basically the whole hierarchy of the mafia has always been like that. Like, if you're not taken out by your best friend, like, then
who are you?
Then who are you?
You're not big enough if your family and friends don't want to kill you.
Right, Rebel. It is really odd that they could be so great to their families and be so mean to others. But we actually talk about that as I talk about the rise of Capone here. So, Colleen, you want to start off with talking about Capone?
Yes. So the outfit had hit its pinnacle during those 1920s when Capone was now in control. He brought out the police force and became the leading force in bootlegging. Or he bought out the police force.
Yeah.
And so the outfit had so much money under Capone that they had to open up soup kitchens and various charities to funnel their money through it.
Right.
And he was the man of the people. So when he would enter a room, the people would literally stand up and clap, because this is a time where both business and government were so terribly corrupt. He was the man that gave them real life.
It's a lot like Castro in, Colombia, because the same thing, like
Cuba.
No, I'm not thinking of Castro. Who's the other guy I'm thinking of? The it's not Castro. Who is it?
Duterte?
No. It's the one. Oh, dang it. He was in a prison that he built himself. What the heck is his name? Escobar.
Oh.
It's a lot like Escobar, because Escobar was like, a gangster. He was the same kind of thing down there in Cuba. Cuba was up in Colombia. I never remember. I always mix those ones up.
Castro's Cuba. I believe Escobar
is Colombia, right? Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry, guys. I'm terrible with geography. Just so you know, like, I am not a geography major. Okay. I don't know where anything is ever. Yeah. But anyway, it was like Escobar, and the fact that the government thought he was terrible, and a lot of, people, the FBI wanted to catch him for drug running and everything. But truthfully, he was like the big papa for everybody, because he employed everyone and gave them actual, living wages and ways to really be profitable. And it's the same thing here with Capone, one of the other movies, and I always talk movies about how I think about things, but if you've ever seen Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe in American Gangster, it's kind of this situation too, where he was, he was looked at as, completely under the letter of the law and everything, but then they realized how much he actually did for his people, and
well, so I've not seen many mob movies because I'm younger, and so they weren't like the ones to watch when I was growing up.
Right.
But I always, and it's fictional, but the Dark Knight series, and how the mob is very active in Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises.
I don't know who the hell is calling me from California right now, but no.
And so, how the mob is really big in the Dark Knight series, and how they give life to these people who don't have so much money and aren't in power. And it gives them more freedom and control, and are more brazen to do things because they feel like they have some sort of say. And then, like in the last one, when they all take over the government, because they're like, the government is so corrupt, we're just taking it over and imposing, what they've been doing and punishing people who put them down. So it reminds me very much of how really the mob does work.
Yes. And so Capone created like a crime syndicate that has almost been untouchable and invincible for decades. So from his rule forward, their power and influence has been so strong that even if they were arrested and prosecuted, the accused would walk scot-free or live a life of luxury while behind bars. So decades of government corruption was so predominant that federal prosecutors couldn't touch mafia members at all. Even the FBI admitted that the Chicago outfit was way too powerful for them to take down, and they didn't have the manpower, the resources, or the tools to kind of bring them to their knees to such a huge and powerful crime conglomerate. So this is how powerful specifically the Chicago outfit was.
The FBI didn't have the power or control to take them down enough time. And think if you got in wrong with the mob, they have control that if you magically just disappear or not heard from again, it's probably because you pissed somebody off. You try to snitch, Bye.
Kind of like no body, no crime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so for over 8 decades, the Chicago outfit ran and operated a multi-billion-dollar international organized crime empire, reaching into legitimate business, law enforcement, and politics. And think of billion back then.
Right.
A lot of money.
That's like
Uh,
trillions and trillions now.
yes. And so the outfit partnered with the unions and were able to create such wealth and success through these partnerships that hundreds of legitimate businesses and organized crime operations that they became an $800 billion a year outfit. Again, it's trillions of dollars now.
Right.
And they were even dubbed the Chicago Empire because of how closely they resembled the Roma Empire's success.
Yeah, the Roman Empire. So yeah, if you think about it, because the Romans did the same thing. They basically came in and they took over everything. And so former FBI Assistant Director William F. Romer stated, and this is a long quote, guys, so I'm going to read the whole thing to you. The outfit was very, very, very powerful, phenomenally powerful, that they had the power to literally control the world, the whole world. They were far, far, far more powerful, influential, and dangerous than the five families. They could have shut down every city in America if they wanted to. They controlled the entire state of Illinois. They virtually controlled the whole country. They controlled everything in Chicago. They were all powerful and omnipotent. They were unbelievably powerful and influential. They had infinite, unlimited, and immersible power, wealth, and reach. There was nothing that they couldn't do. Their influence was endless and incalculable. Their power and influence was astonishing, astronomical, and absolutely unbelievable. They controlled anything and everything in Chicago, which was their city and their territory and power base. They ruled Chicago with an iron fist. They controlled Chicago. They owned Chicago. They ran the entire city, and you couldn't do nothing in Chicago without their permission and say so. They owned everything in the whole city. They controlled all the legitimate businesses, illegal businesses, industries, companies, cops, judges, politicians, government officials, organized crime activities, and criminal operations. Whenever you wanted to do anything, you had to give the Chicago outfit a large cut of your earnings. They could have removed the mayor if they wanted. They could have shut the whole state of Illinois down forever. They could have removed anybody from any position, from the mayor to the governor to the senator. They controlled the courts, law enforcement, and local government. They were powerful enough to remove the president of the United States of America if they really wanted to. They could have done anything they wanted to. That's how powerful they were. They controlled all of the labor unions. They controlled who the president of the unions were. They controlled all the industries, corporations, and companies. They controlled American politics. They controlled the United States presidential candidates and controlled the voters. They controlled much of the United States government. The Chicago outfit was literally the second government of the United States. For over the Chicago outfit was a multi-billion-dollar international organized crime empire with branches all over the world from the 1940s to the early 21st century. The Chicago outfit made tens of trillions of dollars, killed tens of thousands of people, revolutionized organized crime, vastly expanded their political power, and created numerous multi-billion-dollar empires, both legitimate empires or criminal empires. The Chicago outfit ruled America with an iron fist. The outfit was the wealthiest and most powerful crime syndicate in American history. And
End quote.
Yeah, that's the end quote. Like literally, that was the former assistant director of the FBI. Like that's how. So you guys think about,
who just threw in every adjective known to mankind
to describe power and yes, far, far, far away.
Right, just to give them everything. And if you listen to our interview with Jack O'Halloran, he talks about how much political power that they had.
Yes.
They did, and I learned back in high school how there are speculations, and I did an episode on that, who killed Kennedy and the different CIA, the mafia, the FBI,
right?
And yeah, I'd suggest you all listen to our interview with Jack O'Halloran because he talks about how the mob had connections with the Kennedys and the people in Kennedy's cabinet, and why it was important that maybe they take him out.
Mm-hmm.
And so then in the late 1950s, this outfit became an $800 billion a year criminal empire and became even wealthier, larger, and more powerful every day. And at its peak, the Chicago outfit was the second richest and most powerful criminal organization in the world, just behind the, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that word.
It's two other, like, I think it's like I think it's I think it's Japanese or Asian mafias, because that NDRAN, that's probably like the Yakuza, but this is a different word. But and the Kimura, in terms of size, reach, influence, wealth, and power. So.
Yeah, this outfit has always been a highly organized criminal organization and is one of the best structured organized criminal empires in the world. Yeah. And something that made them so successful and powerful and dangerous was that they were the only mafia family in Chicago.
Yeah.
And it being a highly organized criminal organization that controls organized crime in that city, whereas the five families compete with each other for control of major cities, drug trafficking, labor unions, organized operations, and racketeering activities all over America, all over the world, and in New York. So like in New York, all of the mafia families have to compete with each other for things. Mm-hmm. Chicago didn't have to compete. They had it.
Rebel says they could give her some money. She wouldn't mind at all.
I would too.
So the outfit's power, international influence, and organized criminal operations not only reaches all over the United States, but vastly stretches across 4 continents: North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia, to countries as far as Canada, Mexico, Cuba, Jamaica, Bahamas, Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Singapore, Italy, Sicily, Spain, Turkey, Greece, Albania, Germany, Poland, Switzerland, England, United States, or the United Kingdom, Netherlands, France, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Ireland, Russia, China, Japan, Iran, India, New Zealand, and Australia.
So all of major countries. And you got to think, why those countries specifically? It's what resources are available to them. You got Central America, you've got drugs. You go to Europe, you got more types of drugs and, grapes to grow wine.
Sex trafficking.
Sex trafficking, especially, we got technology things happening in Japan, weapons. In the Middle East, you have control and power because it's an unstable region. Just Switzerland and Finland and Norway's got the money. Ireland's got resources and money in the mafia ties. They are all connected. They all have something that the mafia wants from them. Mm-hmm. And they were being that only family in Chicago gave them access to all of this and not having to compete, where in the 5 families, maybe one family gets Asian, one family has Russia, and one family's got Europe. They all have Chicago.
Well, and the other thing about the 5 families was that they were almost exclusively Italian or Sicilian run. The outfit, however, allowed other ethnic groups to rise to power as well, which is something that we're going to talk about when we get into more about how Elaine Smith did what she did. The outfit had soldiers, assassins, bodyguards, and associates from all ethnicities, including Polish, Irish, Japanese, Colombian, Chinese, Jewish, German, and Russian since its early days. So instead of like just being like, we are Italians and that's all we're going to do, they passed the wealth around to bring in the other people to do different things in their organization. So they're spreading this wealth across all of them, but it's giving them, like Colleen said, resources and things that the 5 families may not have been able to tap into because they were iced out of areas,
Well, and it allows them more cover, because if you're looking for just, the high rolling, Italians in the city, but really because you're working with the Irish and, different Asian ethnicities and Central American ethnicities, you're not just pointing to one area of the city. You're looking then at everything, and it makes people have to spread their resources a lot further than just looking into one family.
Right.
So according to a report by Chicago-based FBI Assistant Director Jeffrey Saleh in 2018, the outfit's membership is moderately estimated to be at least 300 made members with over 1,000 associates. From the mid-1920s through the late 1990s, the outfit was larger and stronger than ever, with an enormous army of soldiers and assassins in the hundreds of thousands. And from the 40s to the early 90s, the outfit had a staggering membership of approximately 100,000 made men and over 250,000 associates all over America and even around the world. And so in Chicago specifically, the outfit's membership was estimated 6,000 soldiers and 20,000 associates for 8 decades. And it still remains one of the largest and most powerful organized crime syndicates in America.
It does. And the thing is like we said, allowing all these different people to be a part of it really boosted up those numbers, and it made them like it's still very, very hard to infiltrate and penetrate and kind of do anything. So, it's just kind of the hundreds of thousands of people. And you got to think about a lot of that had to do with unions.
Yep.
The mob was heavily, heavily, heavily involved with the unions, because they were the ones that organized a lot of that. You want to talk about Hoffa and all those different things, and so I mean, it was huge. It was very
Well,
far-reaching.
the mob is, I think, responsible for helping create the 8-hour workday
Yeah.
and safer working conditions
Mm-hmm.
because of the unions. And so,
Right.
a lot of people think, well, the mob, is exclusive, dangerous and criminal, but they did do a lot of good for this country.
They did, and a lot of good for people back in the day that wouldn't have otherwise ever had anything. The government wasn't paying them any. The government was not helping anybody. The companies were extorting these people for basically sweat hours, and
Yep.
paying them pennies. So I mean, it really was a time where the mob, yeah, you look at them as being bad. They killed people. They did these different things. But then again, they also did a lot of far reaching good things. So
Well,
I'm not
right, because
saying that
they
the
had
mob was great. I'm just saying that they
well,
did stuff.
right, because back, I always think of, in the early 1900s, we still had children working in factories, working for pennies a day.
Mm-hmm.
We had, the women who were in the factory doing the watch work, which to me still is insane. We're just getting radiation poisoning because they're licking uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
up radiation things. And so they help get children out of the workplace, people to get better jobs. And like we said, they're using different ethnicities. So they're giving people a chance, because back in the early 1900s, it even white people were categorized into groups, a neighborhood. So it's Milwaukee specifically, we, one side was Germans, one side were Irish, one side were the Italians, one side
Mm-hmm.
were the Polish. And then as this country progresses, then it turned
Mm-hmm.
into different races, not just ethnicities. But
Right.
by having everybody in their gang of their mob, they had more control in giving people opportunities.
Right. Right. So next week, okay, so but in the 1980s, one woman took down a multi-billion-dollar a year operation and really put a huge dent in the outfit's operations. Her name was Elaine Smith, and she was one of the first female FBI agents who found her way to the agency after teaching in inner city schools for many years, which is like crazy that a school teacher would end up being an FBI agent. But even her husband did the same thing. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And we kind of gave you guys a little bit of a rundown about her last week, or not last week, a couple weeks ago when we did our intro to the crime of the month. So you might want to check that out just to hear some more about Elaine Smith before we get into this more. But Smith worked with one of the higher echelons of the outfit named Ken Ito, and what they accomplished was like nothing short of amazing. So, I mean, it's a great story, and she is fascinating. I cannot wait to release the interview that we did with her. Totally
Yeah.
incredible.
She's an amazing, amazing woman and has done so much. And again, I still love the title of her book. In my Prada, like
a handbag in my a handbag in my Gucci, like
something like that. It's just still badass.
Yeah, it's badass. It's a badass. But next week we'll be back live on Monday at 8 p.m. to continue talking about Elaine's early beginnings in the FBI and how she began working with Ito to infiltrate an organization that had been deemed too big to tackle for decades. So we're really excited. This is kind of an interesting, fun thing for us. I've always been fascinated by the mafia, the mob. I watch all all of them, and I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so those movies were huge. The Godfather, the mobsters. The one about Vegas, I can't think of the one about the Vegas, like Bugsy Siegel and all of them. I mean, there's just so many of them. The Bronx Tales. So I loved all of those and like grew up on them. Like, and who can forget like Public Enemies that came out with Johnny Depp, like John Dillinger. Oh, like and even going back even further to like Kevin Costner and the Untouchables and things like that. So I watched all those movies like religiously. And I've always been interested and fascinated, like Rebel said earlier, the thing that really struck me always was, though, that like somebody could be so bad, could do such good too, so it's kind of
Well,
like the double-sided sword.
well, right. And I think what will end up being the moral of this whole story is to never tell a woman there's something she can't do.
Right.
Like,
Right.
'cause,
Right,
like,
because basically they thought that they when Elaine came into their organization, they were like, "Ha, who's this chick? Yeah, give her the mafia shit.
she's
Just
not going to do it.
whatever. Go over there. We haven't been able to do it. She's not going to be able to do it, and she'll just leave us alone, right?" No, this woman comes in and she's like the pro from Dover, and she's a badass, and she takes it down like unbelievably.
Right, women
So,
get
guys,
shit
you
done.
definitely, you don't want to keep coming back and checking it out and everything. And make sure that you're following us on all of our social medias, guys. So if you want to find us on Instagram or Twitter, it's at True Crime Wives. We're over on Facebook at True Crime Wives as well. We're also at MBD True Crime. And we also have our own website now. So it's madgingerentertainment.com, which is where you can go to grab everything that we do. So Christina writes 2 blogs a week over there. Our podcast is over there. Our other podcasts will be on there. All of our YouTubes are on there. So if you guys want to find us all in one place, let me go ahead and type that in.
Right. We have bios about ourselves. We've got links to the other podcasts we've been on or YouTubes we've been on. You can join our membership on there for a cheaper price.
For cheaper than Patreon. So yeah, you definitely want to go over there because we're starting to add a lot of stuff to that. You guys are going to really love it. But yeah, we've got everything over there for you, along with all the other projects that we're working on that aren't necessarily true crime, but some of them are. So we've got a lot of stuff going on, guys. As we head into the last of our year here, we have a lot of cool things that like we said, we're bringing to the table. A new couple of podcasts. We're also going to be working on producing a couple of other podcasts that aren't necessarily us like talking, but it will definitely be our influence of us being out there. So, and those are really interesting podcasts. I'm really excited about everything we're doing. So, we just keep coming up with new things and new ideas. We're working on documentaries. We're thinking about a serial killer series around the world. So,
if there's anything you guys want to see, send us an
absolutely.
email at goodwivesdish@gmail.com. So that way we can take your considerations into account of what we're doing.
Right. And if you have cases or questions or something else you'd like us to talk about, please, please, please send us that email, So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in on Monday night with us. Like I said, from now on, we will be live on Mondays and Fridays. Monday nights will be our little series that we do like this, crime of the month. I think Colleen has Dahmer ready for next month. I'm pretty excited about that because I don't know a lot about Dahmer, to be honest with you. He's not one of the serial killers that I follow.
I got the cannibal cases. I know way too much about cannibal killers.
And if we can get Colleen to leave the house, she might even go over by the Dahmer, like
yeah. I might leave the house. 207 or 14 days today.
All right, guys, take care and have a wonderful evening. We appreciate you tuning in with us all the time and checking back with us each day. We've got something going on almost every day of the week here and on Facebook, so you guys might want to check them out. But have a wonderful day and enjoy.